It has been a little over a week and a half since I have streamed, and I am getting over con flu. 1 second, folks. Won't lie. I actually recorded a podcast yesterday. Did a morning podcast, but as I was recording, I started hacking up stuff. So I got to re-record that. It's not something you can listen to. What's up, Daisuke? What's up, Dennis? So back to this commission. Um, I need to do a cleanup pass on the background before I print these out, and I need to figure out where I want to go with some of the background details. So that needs to be done today. It needs to be done today because I gotta move on with life. I was only supposed to be doing like one commission a month, and this turned out to be like three. So it's kind of not good. But let's get on with it. So I need my roughie for certain. My initial concept roughie was this. Nice. And I'll copy that and paste that into my reference folder. And then let's open up my other roughie. It should have been this. So let's go here. Something tells me I'm gonna go dig for this fucking thing. I didn't save these properly when I was working. When I was concepting things out. Let's go to my Facebook page. And this is why it's good to constantly save your stuff everywhere. Let's see here. And to never have any weird conversations that might leak onto your streams. So let's go to photos and go back a bit and search. I know I posted. You know what I might have done? I might have made a video of it. Damn it. Yeah, it was right here. So where? Oh, I don't think, you know what? I don't think I ever sketched in. I never actually sketched in any of the color stuff. That's why. All right. So, see, folks, even I forget what I was doing. So, it's possible even for me to forget what the hell it was I was working on. Take this here. So, what's up, Armando? Tint that. And I need to, I think it might be best to kind of just like paint in what I want to do and then draw over it. Probably better that way. Yeah, it's been a slow crawl this week. I got the con flu and I had a whole bunch of other issues pop up. So, E3 is good. I'm going to do a whole podcast on it myself when Brandon can talk. He's getting surgery, or he had surgery, so he's recuperating. But I did. I just did a whole podcast with. I did 2 podcasts. Who was that with? Retro League. It's the Retro League. It's on my Twitter. Too many, be sure. The Retro League podcast. We talked quite a bit about E3 right there, right in the front of the podcast. Episode 441 of the Retro League. So if you want to know more about how E3 was, I get right into there. But there's a lot of cool stuff at E3 that wasn't even on the what do you call that? The press conferences. So. All right. So. One second, folks. I'm just queuing up some of my reference. Yeah, Spider-Man looked great. Like all the major games that you guys are probably like the AAA games, they all look great. But I also go to find games that don't get coverage, and Monster Boy was like my favorite thing shown at that show on the floor. I love hand-drawn graphics and good platformers and with RPG stuff, and that was a real fun game to play. Am I doing 2 different Sonic commissions? No, you saw my initial roughie. This guy wanted a multi-character, so that was an initial layout that I eventually arrived at this. As those 60-second podcasts get updated, you'll see. I'll walk through it. They're a little slow on the updates because Brandon can't do it, so his wife is helping out when she can. No, it's not a ripoff. It's officially a licensed game. Yeah, and there's lots of subtleties in the animations that's really quite good. Doesn't feel flashy or anything like that. Hmm. Yeah, the Bethesda stuff was interesting. I'm actually interested in that Elder Scrolls Blades, you know, especially with the VR stuff. I'm not into mobile games, but I'm always up for simplifying interface and controls and giving me more exploration. So I will be checking that out. Unexpected. Unexpected. And then I'm interested in Starlight only because of the Star Fox stuff. But nothing wrong with that. Play the whole game as Star Fox. It's pretty cool. Definitely feels kind of like their take on. I won't do any of the toy shit. You don't have to. Sega didn't hire them. They were actually making. They were a fan of the series, so they kickstarted their own game, like called Hamster or something. And then because they were, you know, it was like inspired by the Monster Boy series. You know, like if I wanted to make a Mario game, I can't make a Mario game, but I can make something inspired by Mario. But then Sega saw it and then they picked it up and they gave them the full license. So like that's pretty fucking awesome. Resident Evil 2. Yeah, that was pretty cool. I'll give them that. Hopefully they'll get around to fleshing out Code Veronica sometime as well. So. All right, so what from Resident Evil? I mostly just like the first and second games in Code Veronica. I like Resident Evil 4, but um, thought it was pretty good. Didn't care for Resident Evil 3. That's fair. I'm biased, right? Game looked great. People seemed to really enjoy it. Played great. Looked great. Booth was fun. Booth was right in the front of E3, so that was awesome. They had this little hologram in the front. That was cool. Yeah, well, they're busy making the games, man. Those demos are a giant waste of resources for a lot of developers, you know, because they just take away from actually making the game. All right, so let me see. How do I? This is why I've been putting this off because I'm like, I gotta do this again, you know? So annoying. All right, so I gotta figure out how I gotta do all this shit. Yeah, the only game that I wanted to play that wasn't there or I couldn't find it was Onrush. Somehow, if it was there, I missed it. I don't know. But I'm buying that game regardless, so I guess it doesn't really matter. No, that's the hope. Hopefully the sales are there, you know? It's not enough for people to just like something you made. They have to actually go and buy the thing, too. Alright, so what I want to do there... actually, I think that should probably be... What is this process? I'm planning out what I'm going to have to do in color pencil. So I don't want to be figuring this out on the page. And I'm going to need a few background elements on top of it. So all this stuff's going to be colored. And he wanted like a beach scene, so I got to figure out what parts of this is going to be like water. But I want these waters to be like in cubes, three-dimensional cubes that are curving as well. So this is not typical. This is complicated. And the background's going to need one more cleanup pass before I print it out. But I'll need that cleanup pass based on what the final blocks are going to be, which I'd never, normally I figure that out in the roughie, but I just didn't bother. So here we are figuring it out now. Right. Hey, good for you. Yeah, it makes a difference. Oh, if it was still called Manga Studio, maybe they're not supporting the license. Their Clip Studio Paint. Yeah, I'm trying to get back to a normal schedule, man. I work during this time of day. It's just I'm normally working on freelance, which I'm supposed to be doing right now, but this needs to be figured out. So the goal moving forward when there aren't crazy deadlines is I'll be streaming in the morning, afternoons, and then later at night. And I'll do my freelance work around midday. So. Well, by afternoons, I mean like between 9 and 11. Between 9 and 11 or 12, around there. And then between 12 and 5, I'll be on freelance. And then later at night with power prints. Back from 9 to 12. Yeah, just keep it simple. How can I make it less hard to learn to use some software? I don't know what you want to do with the software. You know, if you're trying to make things, color things, the software doesn't do that for you. You do it. Where the tool to color something is irrelevant per each piece of software. It's like, there's the tool to color. There's the tool to select things. What I think you're probably trying to get at is how do you know how to do things? And this is a time in game, man. You got to understand color theory. You got to sit down and understand how colors work. Whether it's traditional or digital, it's largely irrelevant, which then also gets down into values and light sources and structure. The best thing to do is to pick one thing and kind of focus on it for about 3 or 4 months. Structurally, basic stuff. What software you use is irrelevant. I use Photoshop not because it's the best program to do anything. It's because it's an industry standard software. They don't have art departments much anymore, but when I started my career, they had art departments. So I had to go to art departments, and they use Photoshop. Now when I go to art departments, they have Illustrator. And then they're like, how do you get that texturing? And I'm like, Photoshop. They're like, oh, we don't know how to use that. I'm like, not my fucking problem. You know what I mean? So, my answers for this are going to be the same today, and they'll be the same 2 years from now and 5 years from now. Anytime, yeah, if you already have a program, use the program. Do certain programs give you advantages over others? Sure. Can I do gradient maps and I got path selections in Photoshop for another? Yeah, that's fine. Whatever. But man, when I started, there was nothing. You know, there was just color pencils and markers. And you should be able to create some interesting stuff with that. You know, you take the tools that you use outside a computer, help you in the computer. The techniques that you develop in the computer help you outside the computer. It's not the software doing that, it's your brain. I mean, my process has gotten simpler and simpler just through, technique, like just doing it the hardest fucking way possible and then achieving the quality I wanted and then achieving wanting better quality, more simplicity, and then it tends to work out over time. And then at this point, like my biggest thing is just gauging people's ability to tell the difference between something I spent 8 hours on and 4 hours. If they can't tell a discernible difference, like when I say discernible, like that's the difference between a sale and a no sale. If there is not a discernible difference, then why am I spending 8 hours on something? Now, if there's a discernible difference, like it's going to change everything. Case in point, that really bad CGI mustache on, where they CGI'd Henry Cavill's face. Like obviously whatever they did, enough time wasn't spent on it. you know, like kind of has a big, you gotta figure out what's a discernible difference. But you're at the point right now you gotta like learn basics, man. And I think you should limit yourself as much as possible. Like stick to just using lasso tools, a hard brush, and a soft brush. That's it. You know, learn how to make things, learn where light sources are, how to develop three-dimensional surfaces. All those other things, you know, there's no fucking awesome paintbrush that's going to do the work for you, you know. Shouldn't probably have advice. Could have used my time. I don't know I don't know about all that, man. Just it's just that there's this belief that because one person uses software that software is going to make sense for the next person. Like what I use is, and believe me, if there was a fucking easier way to do whatever I'm doing, it's the same in anything else. At this point, I just prefer to stay in one program as much as possible because it just means I'm not jumping around programs, you know. I mean, I'm not updating. I'm sticking with CS5, you know. Yeah, they get obsessed over brushes and selling brushes and brushes and brushes and brushes and brushes and brushes, blah, 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 blah. You know. Stay out of it, man. It's pointless. You know. You want more texturing, you can use a few brushes here and there, but overall the base painting is going to be done with one or two brushes, whatever you're using. 7,000 brushes are just it's just the thing I don't get obsessed over, man. You know? It's like you can come up with all these crazy techniques you want. At the end of the day, salt and pepper, you know, maybe a little olive oil or maybe a little soy sauce on a steak. Let it marinate for about 12 hours. That's gonna be it, bro. You know, you can come with all these crazy fucking Chipotle techniques and fucking nonsense you want. At the end of the day, you know, what I've tried to do is just focus on how can I stay in one or two brushes as much as possible, you know, and how can I keep like this stuff, like keeping all these understructure bits in there so that when I color it, it adds extra stuff, you know? Like turning that off makes it look more, I don't know, deader, more digital. Like, let's see if I can find it. See? If I turn that off, it doesn't look as good. Explain this one to me. When everyone's talking about how you can get all these super clean brushes, I turn that off and it looks not as good. But if I take the old sketch and turn it down to 10% and clean up the edges and leave it in there, you know, you could get all these little like bits, you know. So you can see all those little like little sketchy bits in there. When I get rid of it, it doesn't look the same. Now, at professional studios, they don't want that. They want everything super clean, you know? And for me, I'm like, all right, well, they're paying me, but for my own shit, no fucking way, you know? Like when I drew this, look how imperfect these lines are. I kept all those sketch lines in there. All those little bits are still in there, you know? None of it's perfect, you know? But once it's colored, it's largely irrelevant. They just add stuff. And so that's what I've been really thinking about the last year or so is, you know, like when I look at this piece, I just see Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles. But when employers or average people who don't know my art see it, they go, "Man, you really like changed it up." I'm like, I don't see how I changed a fucking thing. I mean, I drew Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, but that's clearly Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles. It's not like I changed the proportions to a point where like it's super radically different. But I think that we live in a world where everyone is just copying photos of things. So they're literally only redrawing the same fucking pictures over and over and over and over. You know? I mean, I'm working on a piece now for a client, dude. I can't show you guys. It's actually this tab right here. I can't click on it. But let me tell you, man, I don't enjoy the process of having to fucking. At this point, I draw stuff, I send it back. They make changes, send it back to me. I draw over, and I could tell they're drawing over their CG models. And I'm like, why don't you just lay it out in CGI and then I'll just trace your fucking models? Because I don't really see the point of this. You know. I don't give a shit if people respond negatively to sketchy scribbles. You know. For now, I'm just 5 years ahead of the fucking game. You know. 5 years from now, it'll be different. And my mistake in life and my career was listening to fucking people, thinking they had the answers and not trusting my instincts. You know. My instincts have been more correct over time than other people's fucking nonsense. So that's on me, you know. Bother me that people post studies on all. No, because I don't care what people can do whatever they want to do. Doesn't bother me when people are creating things. It bothers me when people who don't create things have a fucking opinion on anything created, you know? Or when someone's going to take a shit on something they don't like, but if they fucking do any one thing, they want to be praised for it. That kind of shit bothers me, right? Because it's like, you're gonna take a fucking dump on some movie you didn't like. You can say, "Hey man, I didn't like that movie. It doesn't work," but they're gonna be like, "This thing is the worst thing ever. All these people who should remake the movie. It's fucking horrible." Meanwhile, if they fucking color in some mandala fucking drawing they didn't even draw with some markers, "Here's my fucking coloring book. Please praise me." You know, that kind of shit is like really. But I still put at least those people are making things. There's people who make nothing to have a fucking opinion on it. I'm going to be the art guy, you know. I'm going to be the one who critiques everything. I'm the art critic. I mean, well, I don't fucking make a thing. Like, go make something. Make something fucking once, so you can start the failure process and learn how fucking hard it is to make anything, let alone make something interesting to anybody. You know. But I don't care, you know. It's like when someone asked me the other day, "Well, does it bother you that, you know, this person gets 1,000 likes when they do nothing, and you do all this stuff and you only get like 100?" I'm like, no, I don't care. I legitimately don't. It's worrying about likes has not helped my fucking pay my rent, you know. I have a goal with what I'm trying to do. I attempt to accomplish it, and I leverage every piece to gain me a little bit of freelance, a little bit more commission work, a little bit of Kickstarter stuff, a little bit of freelance, a little bit of commission work. And that little fucking circle I've created for myself has kept me, you know, with a roof over my head and food in my stomach. So it's like I'm looking at this now and I'm not like, oh man, sitting here looking at colors. Like I'm like, I gotta color pencil all those fucking patterns. Like, is that gonna be too much of a pain in the ass? Like, I'm trying to think about how are the techniques once I apply pencil to paper, you know, is that gonna work out the way I want it to? Like, what layers should probably do it with light blue and then go in with dark blue? Or should I physically draw some of those water lines? I should probably draw them digitally and then, yeah. Gotta be careful too, because sometimes those lines don't work out the same. You have to go thicker on the paper. I personally don't look to the internet to give me critique on my work. Never have. I'll be the judge on whether I think something worked or doesn't work. Because when you're in a studio with, and you're like producing art that has to keep you employed, you can't share the fucking thing on the internet to get. And even if you did, and you got someone's opinion on it, if the art director completely disagrees with the internet, what are you gonna do? Be like, the internet tells me that you're wrong. Good luck. You know. All these things change, depending on who you're working for. All right, so Get this. That's going to need a cleanup pass regardless. Yeah, I like the cartoon. It's good stuff. Yeah, there was really no sense of death in Incredibles 2, like the first one had. So fun, but kind of a shame. I wish I could get an Incredible 1 remaster with the lighting and animation of Incredibles 2. Yeah, I'm not gonna spoil it, but I mean, I don't think it's a spoils to say that. I mean, a spoiler is in Act 3, and then this happens. It's like it is what it is, man. I don't know, Armando. I don't get into the terms overhype. I lived through the prequels and the Matrix sequels, and when I was a kid, it was Ghostbusters 2 is a fucking amazing movie. Then I went and saw it and I didn't like it. You know, a lot of my friends when I was kids thought RoboCop 2 was amazing. I didn't like it. You know, I like Incredibles 2. It just doesn't have the sense of depth that the first movie had. You know, some of the more adult themes are not present for whatever reasons. I don't know why. You know, but it's still a good. I'd watch it any day of the week, dude, over fucking Justice League, and I have zero interest in this Aquaman movie. So I don't care who makes the movies, man, unless they're like rapists and shit like Roman Polanski. Then I care. And I certainly don't give a fuck about reviews and everything else. Eventually I'll get around to seeing everything. If I don't go to the theater, then I'll get around to seeing it at home, you know. It's on marketing departments to sell me on going to a movie. This whole like giant like I never cared about movie reviews when I was a kid. I cared about Cinefex and magazine, how movies were made. But whether a movie, oh, this is an amazing movie and this is an amazing performance, I'm like, well, that just depends on. I mean, that's subjective. How the movie was made was something that I always cared about. I never cared about watching Entertainment Tonight, which was like the big like movie news show back in the day. Yeah. I like movie trivia. Like, what happened in this movie? Oh, I know. Who made this? Oh, I know. It's why I never got along in film class. I took film class when I was in college. And they're all sitting around trying to like figure out, the hidden depths in the meanings of the films. And I was like, look, man, only really the writer and the director know. Aside from that, I'm really interested in how they got this shot or how they did this technically. Like, I just don't care about all that stuff. Just like I don't overanalyze musical lyrics. Like I just don't care. You know, I mean, what it means to me is one thing, but I'm not interested in the discussion about what it means to everyone else. Well, then you got about a million other fucking horror movies that'll depress you pretty good, Armando. Go watch those. Anytime you're feeling too chipper, just go watch American Horror Story or Black Mirror. You'll be good. I know a lot of people weren't too happy at the end of Infinity War, so it's subjective. And I don't care about all that stuff. I care about how things are made. Hence Sketchcraft, not sketch theory. You know? Here's how I made this. What was your intention behind it? Well, there was this, but there's no hidden meanings, other than what I was trying to make. I was trying to make this thing about this. What are the motifs? I don't know. Like, that's not how stories, for me, that's not how things get made. They get made with wanting to tell us maybe a specific arc or a story or something, and then you work out a selection of sequences, you pair that against your goal motivation complex, make sure things line up, make sure things are entertaining, and then you move on. I'm just not that, maybe I'm just not that deep, you know, a fucking person, you know. It's why I like Metal Gear Solid, but I don't like any of the other fucking Metal Gear games. Because Metal Gear Solid had like a straightforward narrative with fun comic book espionage style here, villains and heroes. you know? But the other ones feel like he's really fucking trying with this imagery and some weird fucking message I don't give a shit about, you know? I mean, tell me something, I guess, but like if it's wrapped, it feels like it's like the difference between Sucker Punch and fucking, 300. 300 is a straightforward narrative, and Sucker Punch is like, oh, there's all these levels and meaning and imagery, and I'm like, I don't give a shit, you know? I'm not that fucking clever, you know? I think the straightforward narrative of Blade Runner 2049 is much better than whatever they tried to do in the original Blade Runner, you know? I have no desire to play Death Stranding. Out of all the games that were shown off at E3, I didn't even bother wasting my time with it. I don't care. I'm like, why can't you just fucking make a haunted house game? Haunted house is a real easy fucking formula that just works. Give me a fucking haunted house or a haunted city game, you know? This is so stupid. It's black tar, fucking weird things and baby butts and fucking nonsense. I'm like, this is not for me, man. I'm a simple guy, you know? This is this is not for me. That's why I'm not a big David Lynch guy, man. I can't sit through those fucking films. Like I don't do enough drugs, for I don't do any drug. I don't do drugs enough for this to fucking mean anything to me, you know? Yeah, but I've already played fucking Resident Evil, man. I don't care about more remakes, you know? I played Resident Evil 2. I played the shit out of it when it came out. Oh, it looks better? Yeah, but it's still the same fucking game, man. Like, I just don't care. It's not for me. I'm up for new experiences. I don't care about remakes. I like it. I'm not saying it has to be mindless, but, like, it doesn't have to be so fucking. Look, a straightforward narrative can be really captivating, Like, a little bit of a twist, I get it. Like, Usual Suspects, okay? Sixth Sense, a little bit of a twist. But when it's like Lady in the fucking Water, that's a whole nother level of pretentiousness that it's a form of storytelling I don't relate to, you know? I'm not trying to decipher the fucking meanings. So, I've always been this way. I never took an art history class, so I'm not gonna sit here staring at postmodernist paintings and fucking trying to decipher. Like, the guy was trying to earn a fucking living, and he either did a lot of drugs or didn't. Maybe he was being overly clever. How did the fucking dude make this piece of art? That's all I give a shit about. I don't care about what it fucking means and represents. It doesn't mean anything to me, you know? I don't think there's any more meaning in it than the meaning of a plate of food. Could they have an intention? Certainly. Do they want to sell you an experience? Sure. Do I fucking need to sit there for 40 fucking minutes overanalyzing it? No. You know? That's between him and it's between the chef and their creator, as far as I'm concerned. We want to talk about ingredients, we want to talk about the way things taste, great. But this piece of cake represents to something or other. Like, I'm out of here. I could go. If I want to figure out the meaning of life, I'll just take a walk. You know? And I've been told, well, you know, Rob, your art doesn't really have a lot of depth to it. Oh, great. I'm a shallow artist. You know, everyone can play in the shallow end, right? So there we go. Yeah. Yeah, for me, it was a lot of multiplayer games I'll have no interest in playing. So, I care about the single player experience. Onrush might be the only multiplayer game I play all year. You know, but it's not really multiplayer. So. Well, I got friends, man. You know, personal friends that they read. You know, and they're like, you know, they books like Saga and shit like that. And they're just like, well, you know, just a lot of your stuff's really. Everyone has a fucking opinion, right? So every now and then I get unsolicited fucking comments. And I'm not talking about people online. I'm talking about people I know. You know, and it's just funny. It's like, well, I've known you forever, and it's just, you know, it'd be nice if you did something that was, you know, more than. I'm like, you go fucking make it. You know, if you have such a desire, you know, when are you gonna tell more comic book stories? I'm like, just leave me alone. You know, leave me alone. So they'll never read it, you know? You know? Then a few years from now when I have stories, I'll be like, hey, did you read that? They're like, no, man, I'm getting to it. Like, yeah, okay. I don't really have the time. Oh, you don't have the time. It's always easy to look at one image, right? Like, all you do is make those one images. When are you gonna make the thing that's gonna require, you know, an hour of my life to read that I'm not gonna give you? Well, you know, I'm getting to it. So I can go waste, you know, umpteen thousands of hours of my fucking time making things people are like, I have to go convince people to spend their time reading. Interesting, you know? Everyone wants to tell you what to fucking do with your life, you know? The question is, how do you want to spend your time doing it? And then you have to build up the mental fortitude to ignore the fucking comments. It's just every now and then someone I've known for 20 years likes to chime in. It's not often, but it had it happen the other day, you know? When I'm like trying to get myself, you know, I'm not saying motivated, but you know, I just came off a really crazy week, man. The trip to E3 was crazy. And I'll get into more detail later about it, but I'm like trying to get myself back into the game space here. And then I got fucking people who are like, you know, when are you going to do something more? Then I go, hey, I got this gaming magazine that I just did all the art direction on and doing the cover art too, you know, and they're like, well, yeah, but when are you going to tell like original stories? You know? And I'm just like, what are you so interested in me writing? You know? Because my fucking ideas for stories aren't deep. I got one right now, dude. I'll tell you guys one, right? I keep all these things in notes, right? I'll tell you fucking a story. It's called Pizza Tank. It's about delivering pizzas in tanks in a war against humanity versus robots. It's incredibly not deep. It's called Pizza Tank. All right? Like, that's the shit I come up with. You know? Like, if you guys are looking for me to fucking come up with the next Blade Runner fucking 2099, that's not the Blade Runner didn't look. Blade Runner was interesting to watch, but it didn't inspire me. Project A would inspire me. Like, maybe I'm not the guy people think I am. You know? I love the movie Trivia Schmodown, you know? I like fun, stupid shit, man. You know? The best thing I saw at E3 was the New Day versus Kenny Omega Street Fighter V match. I was there. I watched the whole thing live. Third row in. Simple stories, but yeah, that's why Monster Boy was my favorite game at E3. I hung out with the guy that runs that studio. He was there the whole time. Showed him Megavisions and everything else. Like, but that was my favorite game at E3. I think Breath of the Wild does a good job of uh, simple stories with great gameplay. You know, maybe, you know, maybe they are for me. You know, I like games as a recreation. So I'm old like that. I like to get lost in another world and have fun fighting monsters and shit. And I want to laugh if possible. That's it. You know, you obviously missed out on Mario Paint. I don't want to spend all my time playing a game making things. I make things for a living. Does that make sense? Because then you're not really making things, you're just using their tools to kind of like manipulate objects, making you feel like you created some shit. Even you didn't make jack shit. Like we used to have this in Top Gear Rally on the Nintendo 64, there was this really good paint editor. You can go and like edit your cars. And I'd have my buddy working all day on making cool Batman cars and Green Lantern cars while I sat there fucking learning how to draw perspective. You know, like it was fun. I loved playing the game, but I wasn't gonna sit there all day making skins for cars in their editor, you know? Yeah, it's called Mario Maker. Maybe Res. That's not teaching you piano. You're using a mouse to put things. You might be learning some beats, but you ain't gonna put that mouse down and pick up a piano. I get the idea of gamification, making things more fun to learn, but I do think that there's a point where it should fucking hurt because that's when your brain is rewiring itself. There's a point when you're really learning things where it hurts and you get colossal fucking headaches and it's not fun. And that's because I believe the neurons in your brain are rewiring. I always have my biggest breakthroughs after those moments. Usually like a day or two, sometimes a week afterward. But if it's too much fun, you're not really learning anything. And I think people like resist that pain, that mental pain. They go, oh, well, it hurt. I didn't want to learn it. Like that's called resistance, you know? So you just sort of cheated yourself. I mean, it's not the same kind of pain as fucking you know, childbirth or anything fucking real like that, but it is a level of pain behind your eyes, mental fatigue, headaches. I get it, you know. I get it more now when I'm writing because it's just a part of my brain that I have to redevelop, you know. Easier when I'm writing fiction. It's the goddamn game reviews that fucking drive me batshit crazy, you know. So, so I'm just working on a process that eliminates that problem for me. Yeah, I've told Brandon, I'm like, if is this did it hurt last night? Did he? If you had a really good time, you're probably doing it wrong. That's why when you go to those artists, man, I had a really good time today. I was drawing, everything was great. And I'm like, yeah, probably produced a bunch of bullshit. You know, a lot of professional artists don't talk about this. You know, because it seems like, oh, we're gonna say it hurts to draw. Not really. Meanwhile, you know, if you've ever worked in an art department, you know, you'll see artists struggling. You know, the best thing to do is just sit down in public and start drawing, you know, and you'll watch the headaches. You know, you'll see them go, well, people start making, you know, it's why I don't fucking sit down there and do too much art. Like, I don't do development art at cons. I'll work out my sketches super small, give me kind of an idea, go back to my room, work them out, and then I can do the final rendering in public. But when it comes to working out structure and all the basic stuff, I don't like sitting there fucking doing it in public. You know, and it has nothing to do with trying to hide processes. It has to do with the fact that people will give you unsolicited fucking opinions. And sometimes they're nonverbal. You know, a lot of times they're nonverbal. They're just like, you hear this, you know, they want to talk about why you're doing something. It's why when I do the roughies for this, I don't stream them. Same exact process. I don't mind showing all the rendering because that's the hardest part's already figured out for me. Um, but I'm not going to sit here and, you know, I need to be in a, you got to be in a space sometimes. Definitely for myself, I have to be in a space where my mind is here but not here. It's a form of meditation. It's, I don't know, it's fucking weird, guys. You know? It's why people who write spreadsheets, you know, bean counters don't like artists because they can't quantify the process. And that's why programs like Illustrator and any program that simplifies the drawing process and involves a lot of tracing is what marketing departments and bean counters will always prefer because they can quantify the process. It's just a matter of, well, can you trace faster than that person? How much of the tracing can the program do for you? So we don't need, you know, they don't want any unquantifiable process. But that's the only way you achieve creativity and originality. That's why everything looks the same. It's not a concerted effort to make the same thing. It's that the process in which it was created is the exact same process everywhere. It's a quantifiable process set by crazy fucking deadlines and irresponsible uh, marketing. And so they just quantify the process, and then everything in the end will just turn out the same. Matter of fact, most of the times they start off saying we don't want it to look like anything like this other stuff. We want it to be completely original. But by the end, you have something that's extremely generic and looks just like the 15 fucking other things that came before it. Because the process. which is one of the many reasons why when people go, why don't you do this program? Why don't you use that program? I'm like, because then I'll just start looking like all you people artistically, you know? Like, I don't want to, I want to look, I'm just going to do what I'm going to do because I want to look like I did it. Good or bad, for good or for ill, folks, you know? And the more a program does the work for me, the less it's going to look like I made it. So there's this balancing act between responsible and creative, right? And this past couple years, that's all I've been like working on is what is that? I've tried a lot of different things. You know, I've tried the inks with the pencils, so I can take really super rough drawings and do them traditionally and then color them digitally, just to find little parts where I can make things a little looser. And then I've done looser sketches, and you know, and I've tried that so that I can basically do the work of 4 or 5 people in the time it used to take one person to do their job, you know, but I get to maintain my creativity and my unique, you know, way of seeing things, which throws off, you know, a lot of clients. Well, why did you put this element over here? It would look better over there. I'm like, that's your fucking opinion. I put it over there because that's how I think. Well, it's not right. There's no fucking thing is right, you know? It's just what you're willing to pay for and not willing to pay for, you know? We're all going to sit around and tell each other the right way to do something, the right way to draw something, then we're all going to make the same fucking thing. Is that really what you want? You just want to keep buying, you want every artist to draw the same? What's the point? It's the end game for that. And what I've tried to do, you know, is we can have a discussion here, but I don't make a manifesto video, right? Because it just invites conversation that I don't want to have. I'm not interested in having the conversation with anybody about it. I've made up my mind. Have I been hired? Yeah, I've been hired by studios for my art, you know? Different licensing companies and merchandise and stuff. If you're thinking about a game studio, right now they're the only game studio I'm working with, but I don't have the capacity to work for more game studios, you know? I had a couple indie guys want me to do the cover art for their games, but I'm like, I can't do that. So I'm at max capacity right now for complicated art. And so I've like just made myself available for Toys for Bob, you know, and everything else is going to be other more simpler things and my own stuff. And it would take a crazier studio for me to be like I could not work for 2 game studios right now. I don't have the capacity for it. Yeah, I mean, I've always got work, guys. Like that's the thing. Like I've been fortunate. Like whether it's work I share or don't share. If I'm not sharing the work I'm making creatively, it's because I don't want to invite more of that work. I'm the most unappealing worker out there. I don't understand what you mean by the most unappealing worker out there. work more often by my own rules than the studios. No. No, 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 no. When I work for a studio, I follow their rules. You know? I'm just picky about the jobs that I accept, you know? Because I know the trouble that comes with it, you know? And I don't want to see them in a position of expecting something. And so like I had a client recently, you know, send me a bunch of the stuff that they were kind of hoping to do, and I said, look, you know, this sort of thing isn't what I do. Are you asking that I could do that, or are you asking, you're just saying that you're inspired by that and you kind of want me to do what I'm going to do? And they're like, oh, we want you, you know. Now, the piece I'm working on now is 100% not what I would do, you know. But, you know, sometimes, you know, you put up with shit. So the question is, what am I doing the majority of the time, right? What am I doing the majority of the time? I think the thing that I think about a lot too is I never felt at home in a comic book shop or in an art department. I never felt at home with other artists. You know, I was never like, artists are my people. We should all hang out together. You know, like for me, it's like always been kind of like on my own. Like, I still feel that way for whatever reason. I don't go on Twitter and go, man, these people are, you know, there's people that are friendly, but I don't go, oh, you know, we're all the same, you know, like we're all friends. Yeah, well, that pickiness only came about because my parents died at a young age, you know? And I'm not gonna waste my fucking life doing meaningless things. Unless my wife tells me I have no choice. I was gonna turn down the Toys for Bob stuff, honestly. Just because I have a bunch of other shit to do with these Kickstarters. But my wife was like, seriously, dude? You know? So I was like, well, alright. I guess shit gets delayed. Yeah, I just don't feel at home in I don't know why, guys. You know, like they all want to sit here and argue about what shit's, you know, what's this? What are they doing on this book? Like I don't read those books. You know, I'm reading Delicious in Dungeon and I think that's probably all I'm reading right now. Yeah, I like The White Knight, right? The Sean Gordon Murphy book. I just think it's probably because when I was growing up, I had to keep it all like in my head, you know. I used to hang out with the comic book owner when I was a kid, but these days they're all my age and or younger, and I don't like a lot of the people. Most of them are in there playing magic cards anyway. You know? Then like, what do you do? Oh, what books you work on? Oh, you don't work for Marvel DC, then you don't really count, you know? So it's like I don't like talking about any of that shit, you know? So I try to make certain that I buy things, you know? So I'm always you know, I've always got something coming in, but I just find myself less interested in American comics right now for whatever reason. I'll probably get that Max Batman, you know, because Sam Keith's gonna draw some weird shit. So yeah, the place that I go to like chat about shit, you know, fan stuff would be when I go to the barber shop. I hang out with the guys there and we talk about different things, you know, between comics and games and whatnot. But I have a problem supporting Marvel Comics with the way that company's treated me, so you know, it's very difficult for me to be like, oh, but then I've never really been into it. Like I like the X-Men in the 90s. Mm. McFarlane Spider-Man, so that's about it. I wasn't really. I always read independent comics like the Turtles and the Tick and Bone and Spawn, Battle Chasers and shit. I'm reading the Konosuba light novels, so that's fun. Yeah, so I'm enjoying that. I don't have much. That's the pain when you make things, you don't have as much time, you know. So it's like I gotta find things that I can do. Like if I'm gonna watch something, it has to be something that I can watch with my wife, you know, so we can spend some time together. You know, if I'm reading something, generally speaking, I mean, I physically read because I'm making things that are gonna require people to read. So if you're not doing that, you're kind of fucking yourself. Um, so I leave myself about 30 minutes a day to read. You know, and if that's a comic or if it's a light novel, then that's the way it works. Um, Otherwise, I'm listening to, you know, audio novels or podcasts. I'm trying to cut out a lot of conversation about movie news though. So like I only listen to some things like Heroes, which I enjoy, or some podcasts like Liam Robertson stuff. It's a game guy. But I just can't take a lot of the conversations right now that are about like telling people you have to get along with one another. I'm like, I'm 40 years old, man. Like, I don't need this this conversation ain't for me. So we watch anime, like, I'm all caught up on Food Wars. So that's good. She can't watch 2 anime at one time, though, so I gotta wait to watch Hero Academia. I'm going to, but she can't watch 2 anime at one fucking time. So it's a point of contention in this relationship. I like Liam Robertson. He has a Patreon. He has a lot of inside info, and when he's reported on games that I've worked on, let's just say he's been 100% right. So I like his podcast and stuff. It's worth the $5 a month I spend. So I subscribe to that, and I do like some movie discussion. So I subscribe to the Cinephiles, which is Roka's podcast, because they actually talk about the craft of the movie being made and everything. So I enjoy that. There's a few anime I gotta get caught up on. ReZero and One Punch Man starting soon. And I gotta get caught up on Darling in the Franxx. Yeah, we'll see. Then Better Call Saul season 4 comes out now, I guess. So looking forward to that. Whenever they get around to making more Haikyuu. No, I got Luke Cage season 2 to watch until then. Plenty of shit to watch. Ah, this fucking thing's trash. It's tedious! Oh, is that a palm? That's a palm back there. Shit. Ah, thanks. Yes. Ugh. Just gotta finish sketching in this nonsense. Take me a couple minutes. You can do it. You can do it. You can do it. Later, laser. Uh, yeah, I mean, I don't mind. It's just I don't want to eat up an hour. I'm a professional illustrator. Been doing this for about 14 years now. So I kind of started working in licensed apparel, like Marvel shirts, back in 2004, 2005. And then I did video game magazines, and I did a bunch of independent comics and some graphic novels for gaming uh, that never got published. Spent a lot of years working on comics that never got published. And then I got into cover art, and so like I've been on Imagine FX. I did the cover for Game Informer last summer. Uh, Done stuff at IDW for a while. Used to do the covers to like Yokai Watch and some Skylander stuff. So right now I do a lot of my own art, and I'm doing concept art for the new Spyro game right now. So, um, on the YouTube channel, if you want some of my previous like career highlights, like the march towards the madness, uh, in the playlist, I used to do this podcast for a number of years where I talked a lot about my career, and I've archived it. So in the playlist, there's a Sketchcraft podcast 2010 to 2014 playlist. Inside there, there's should be episode 32. No, episode 32. Rob FAQ, Kickstarter Rob FAQ. So I did this Kickstarter once, and that's where I told a lot about myself up until that point. I probably spent about an hour doing it. So, but I stream most of my art, like 90% of it, um, right onto the YouTube channel, and then I'll make like 60-second podcasts where I just kind of break everything down as I go. I do speed paints as well. I do art tips, so if you have questions, I'll make little art tip videos. What I don't really do is get into like, here's how to draw Batman, and then it's some lengthy, uh, you know, discussion on how to do something that you're not really. I try to break things down into really smaller bits, and then show my process from beginning to end with everything else, you know, and let people sort of gleam off that. It's just those bigger tutorials, I just feel they're disingenuous and they don't really help people long term. So, but yeah, there's plenty of there. There's plenty of stuff there, you know. Oh, new Joe Rogan's up. Nice. So like with this, this is a commission. This is a commission. So I'll be printing this out, inking it traditionally, and coloring it in color pencil across 3 images, similar to this is my DeviantArt page, similar to, like, this is all color pencil. So I just prefer to lay out all my stuff digitally. Like this was a color pencil sketch cover I did last year. So, but yeah, feel free to ask questions and stuff, you know. Like I'm pretty approachable, you know. Super not, I don't, you know. If I don't feel like talking, I just won't talk. You know. I'll mute the mic, you know, but I don't really get annoyed or angry or anything like that, you know. So, right. Generally, if I don't want to talk, I just don't stream. It's basically the best way to do it. Ah, DA, awesome. So this, there we go. So I do believe, so this will be 3 individual pieces that link up. So that's how it's going to work. It's how it's going to work. Alrighty. I think that's it, guys. I think I'm going to call it quits here and then get back to my other stuff. So next week will be a more regular schedule. I'll be doing commissions in the morning. I'll be offline in the middle of the day, and then at night I'll be working on the Darksider stuff. So until that's done, and then I'll work on the X-Men stuff. So yippers. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Otherwise, if you'd like to support the show, I have a store. It's called shopsketchcraft.com. Sometimes when I have prints, they go in there, and when they sell out, they sell out. That's how it works. That's how we do things around here. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. I'm gonna go get some coffee. I know 3 hours. 3 hours of talking and drawing. How many artists can just draw and talk for 3 hours? Do you know any? There can't be that many, right? The whole time? Can't be that many. I think I'm not even tired of talking. You know? So it's weird. It is weird. I've developed a talent I don't know what to do with. Make some coffee. Peace.